Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Folks, welcome to the Gone to the Dogs podcast live at the 2023 Grand American Coon Hunt. Man, this thing has been going on since 1965, since old Homer was a pup. But what I'm trying to do here, I'm here in the vendor barn in the American Cooner Full Cry booth, and on Saturday. And we have had a tremendous crowd of people already pass through the vendor barn. We're here with the American Cooner and Full Cry magazines and the Gone to the Dogs, A Coon Hunter's Journey book. But the great part about being here in this location is lots of folks stop by. And this guy that I'm going to bring to the mic is no newcomer to the Gone to the Dogs podcast, but he's sure a long-time friend of mine and a guy that I really always enjoy visiting with. And I just, without further ado, Mr. Jim Meeks, Wild Man, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing, Steve?
Oh, I couldn't be better, brother, except for I'm just getting too old.
Couldn't get no prettier weather, though, could it?
No, Jim, we've had an awesome weekend as far as weather. And I know you've got to be as tired as I am when the day's over around here, because somebody's stopping you every minute to talk, and you've got so many good stories to share with them from those days. I really enjoyed earlier today getting to meet Ashley Oxendine's dad. Buddy, I believe, right? That's the first time I'd met Mr. Oxendine, and I see why he raised such a fine son. And I really enjoyed hearing the stories that you and Ashley were sharing. Now, Ashley was just a kid hunting with you, right?
He was about 13. He lived about probably 20, 25 miles, and I'd go over there and pick him up and bring him back home and hunt. He had a little black and tan dog he called Joe, and he was a nice dog. Of course, my dog was a big old 80-pound dog, and he probably was 50, but he thought he was 80, and he could stay with them 80 pounds.
Yeah.
And I hunted with Ashley a pretty good while, and I carried him off to some of my buddies upper state where there's a lot of coons, and we treat a lot of coons together.
Yeah.
And he really wasn't a boy. People was talking about that boy, but he really wasn't a boy. He was a man when he was that young. We got in some rough places, and I'm not tough, but he never complained. He'd go through there. It never got too rough, too deep, nothing. He was always there, never complained. And most people, especially young people, wouldn't go in that stuff. But he loved it much as I did, and he still loves it.
Yeah.
And he was telling his father, Buddy, about hunting with me, and he told me Buddy wanted to come and hunt one night, so they was having a hunt over at our local club, and I told him to bring him. So he come over, and it was cold, and the swamps was running full of water, and you might say there was white capping. That water was waist to rib deep, and Mr. Buddy come over, and we hunted, and I see where Ashley got all this stuff from. We went real deep water, and trying to come out, you leading them dogs is having to swim, and you trying not to fall down, and water up your chest and all. And Buddy never said a word. We went into 3 big old places. He never said a word. He never fussed. He enjoyed that hunt. You could see he enjoyed it. And all he did was talk good about the dogs and about the hunts. And he didn't talk about his dog and how good his dog was and how he used to do this and that. It was just that hunt. And he never said a cross word. He never fussed or complained. He was just like Ashley. You could see the apple didn't fall far from the tree. And them was good people. I've known them for long. I hadn't seen Buddy in a long time to the day, but them is good, respectful people. I have much respect for them. And if you talk to the people around that area, you'll get the same thing from everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's a good perspective. Of course, from the first time I met Ashley Oxendine, a lot of people know him. He owns the Big Country Dog.
Yeah.
By far the hottest blue dog in the decade, I'd say, or longer. And and he and his partner John Strickland and Doug, I believe, is a partner. He's very polite gentleman.
Oh, yes.
And I knew right away that this is a good guy, and he's very successful.
Oh, yeah.
He's been extremely successful in farming and all that, and you see why. I mean, he's hardworking. He's a great guy. He's personable, and my experiences with him have been there's been no bragging on the dogs or anything like that. But it was really good for me to stand and listen to you guys talk about those experiences, of hunting. And he remembered your old dogs, and you were talking about the one female, the Shirley female, and he's saying how he'd really like to have one out of her today and all. But, in this sport of coon hunting, you meet so many people, all kinds, all walks of life. Some of them, you say, well, you take with a grain of salt. But Ashley's just one of those really good guys in the sport,
Well, so many people have so much respect for him because he always carries himself respectful. You don't never hear him say a cross word about nobody, no dog.
Right.
If he says something, it's something that's nice about it. Yeah. And just like you seen today, you can stand around all day, you'll never hear him bragging about anything. Mm-hmm. He don't, I got this and I got that.
Right. Exactly.
And he puts more to emphasis on you. Like today, he was putting emphasis on me. When I was trying to put it on him. And Buddy's the same way. Like I said, I've known Buddy for years, and
he's a really nice guy. I could see somebody told me way back, they said, how you judge a fella to say, would I like to climb in a pickup truck and ride 500 miles with him, And I definitely would enjoy the trip with those fellas, that's for sure. Well, Jimmy Meeks, you have been, how long you been coming to Grand American now, you think?
I've missed about 3 years. I came to the very first one, and I've missed about 3 years all that time. Yeah.
Well, everybody associates you with the Yadkin River dogs, because you've had that name on your hounds for many years. And, of course, I've been privileged to do articles with you and stuff and peel back to all the layers of that history and stuff. And it's just such a great history. And, man, what are some of your memories of Grand American?
The first one I came to, when they started the Grand American, it was actually put on by the National Night Hunters. Mm-hmm. And that some of the biggest breeders and hunters of the days comprised that. And the first time, I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina at that time, and they went around to different clubs trying to get up guides and judges. Well, what they did, if your club would say make 10 available, well, they had a point system. If 5 of them would judge and guide, you got 10 points, 2 for each one. If they just judged or just guided, you got 1 point each. Well, however many they used at the end of the hunt, when all expenses were paid, they figured up how much money was left, and all in points. They give it a point system. They got so much a point. And if it was whatever it was, if your club had 10 points, you got 10 times that much money what it was worth. It was paid to the clubs. Yeah. So I was the master of hounds here one year, and I've judged many years, and I've judged some real high dollar dogs or high well-known dogs.
Oh, yeah.
But the main thing is I've hunted with some of the best people in the world. Me and Gordon Gilroy from Maryland come down, and we'd pick a dog that had been advertised stronger we'd heard about, and we'd ask to go along on the cast. And we went along the cast for years, and we've seen some really good dog work. And of course, we've seen the other, our own make mistakes. But we've hunted with some good people and some good dogs. But this hunt to me, I hadn't hunted in years. This is a reunion to me. Mm-hmm. I've seen people here right now that I'll never see until I come here again.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Just like I was telling you, Vernon Owens.
Right.
I hadn't seen him in years, but I see him here, and I come here, it's like a family reunion. Now, me and the Gilroy clan from Maryland's down here now. They down hunting with me, staying with me. We come down, and we just walk around and meet old friends and
Yeah.
meet some new friends and just enjoy it. It's fabulous.
That David Gilroy is a jewel of a guy, and
Oh, man.
somebody I always enjoyed seeing. He's always got a big smile on his face. He's a big boy. I had to
Yeah.
look up to him. But now Gordon was his uncle, right? That's what somebody was asking me before, and I said, no, I don't think Gordon was David's dad. I thought he was his uncle. Yeah.
Well,
and now Gordon passed away a few years
Gordon
ago.
was one of my best friends.
Yeah.
I've never met a man that didn't like Gordon.
Absolutely.
But Gordon started coming down hunting with me in probably 80, 81. He called me, seen an ad on my Jeff dog, and he come down. We just instant friendship, and he'd come down and stay several nights at a time. And they would come down the first of the week, and we'd hunt all week, and then come to the Grand American, And but I hunted with Gordon. I hunted with Gordon's daddy. I hunted with David. And David started coming down when he was 14 years old. He's 55 years old. He's been coming hunting with me. And now he brings his son, Tom. I've been hunting with, he's 21. I've hunted with him since he was 9.
Yeah, I met his boys there yesterday.
Well, he brought Sam this year. The first time, he's 20, the first time I've hunted with him.
Yeah.
But I've hunted with Tom, his daddy David, his uncle Gordon, and Gordon's daddy Tom. So I've hunted with several generations of them. And what's the good about that? Every one of them's the same way. I don't believe they ever meet a stranger.
Yeah.
When Gordon come down, he was 14 years old, and he'd go to sleep standing up. And I'm not talking about pretending. He'd be snoring asleep,
Yeah.
and them dogs could come tree, and he'd wake up and start walking. He didn't wake up and say the tree. He just wake up and start walking to the tree, just like a machine,
like a robot.
But
yeah,
he's one of my best friends.
Well, I know that you've mentored a lot of kids and young people over the years, because I talk to them and they tell me, that they hunted with you when they were younger and all that. That was mostly when you lived in North Carolina, right down in the low country.
Right.
There. Yeah.
I had one bunch of brothers that lived about 35 miles. They was Johnson brothers, lived in Mullins, South Carolina. And I would go down there and get them. I'd drive down and get them and bring them all the way back to the house and hunt.
Yeah.
They was good hunters. They was little teenage boys.
Yeah.
And them boys was good hunters. We hunted a mile. And they were the same way. Steve was the first one hunting with me, and he was probably 14 or 15. And I took him in. I hunted. This ain't any way trying to be bragging or bad, but I hunted some bad, rough stuff. But the reason I did, nobody hunted it. You can talk to anybody that hunted with me all them years, and you probably can't find anybody that ever heard another dog in the woods. But there was coons there, so that's why I hunted. I enjoy it. But Steve come down, and we was going to the dogs, and
that's a spinoff on the title of this podcast here. Going to the dogs.
Yeah.
Going to the dogs. All right.
Well, we went in there and he tried to take a shortcut. When when it's swamp, you see an open spot with green grass, you don't walk there. And he was toting the coon. He went across there and he had mud in his eyes. He went down, he come up and he said, that coon weighed 100 pounds. And when we got home, my wife said, Ma, what'd you do, dunk him? I said, no. But he brought his brother up with him, his younger brother, Matt, and we was going in there to the dogs, and Matt did the same thing. He said, they're right over there. I said, don't go that way, boy. He said, I'm going this way. I said, go ahead. He went out there, and we got a pole and drug him out of there.
Well, Jimmy, what is it about? I've found some of the toughest hunters, like yourself, like Frank Giddings, like just talking to Ashley Oxidine, talking about how tough and rough it is down where he seemed like the rougher it is, the more dedicated or whatever. I mean, I've known, I'm not putting myself in that category, but I grew up in those mountains and laurel thickets and stuff in southern West Virginia. I think the difference is a love for the sport of coon hunting, regardless of where you go.
Well, Steve, I was raised in Charlotte, and I hunted up in the mountains where I live now all my life, and I hunted all around. And I would drive down eastern North Carolina from Charlotte hunting when I lived up there and hunt the swamps. So I hunted it all. But I've took people from down there and not the real bad mountains, just hills we call them. And they'd say, if I had to hunt here, I'd quit. I'd never hunt again. And I brought many of them would come from up there down in the swamps, say the same thing. But it's not that I'm any tougher than you are or you're tougher than me. You just hunting a different thing. You use different muscles pulling your leg out of that mud than you do climbing that hill.
That's right.
And you don't quit. What you do if you move to a place like that, you slow down because it's rough on you. I don't care who you are.
Oh, yeah.
And as you adjust to it, you go back to hunting. But if you're a tough hunter and love it, you make a way to hunt it somehow or other.
That's a good perspective for sure. I know I hunted all those years in Michigan, and that was easy hunting. It wasn't like what Frank hunts up there. I wasn't hunting those old bad swamps
using
and
the
stuff.
flatland.
I was hunting down in the southern part, down there in the farmlands. It had a little roll to it, but low places had a little water and nothing you couldn't go through in knee boots, you know. And but then I go down and I get that cabin in western North Carolina, and I got this old plot dog horse that I carried around for years, and I'd go around up around the side of one of those mountains. Well, I knew if he treed off, I could fall off that mountain to him, but I was going to have to climb back because that's where a buggy was, you know. And like you say, it's all different, you know. And so I went from being a mountain hunter, then all those years hunting that easy stuff, and going to coon hunts all over the Midwest and hunting in Illinois and Indiana and Kentucky, you know. And then here I am back in the mountains, but there's one problem with that. I'm old now, you know. And boy, I tell you, when I first started back there, it was a little rough on me, but I got used to it, you know.
Well, when I moved up there, I had people tell me, so what you do, you drive up top and then you walk down to them. I said, it don't matter if you turn at the bottom and walk up, or if you turn at the top and walk down, you got to walk back up.
That's right.
But you know, a lot of people, I've went up to Frank several times, and he's always treated me like family.
Absolutely.
And I hunted with Robbie, and me and Robbie's went off ourselves, hunted several times, and he's just like Frank. He's a tough hunter. Good
he is too.
And his wife, Oakley, it's just like I was at home. I've never been treated no better nowhere. But everybody thinks Frank's got so many coons, it's ungodly. You know, most people, Indiana law knows, but down here, people don't have a clue about the coon. But people assume that all hunting is like central Illinois or something. They think it's flat and beautiful and coon.
Yeah.
Frank's got some of the toughest hunting in the world. He's got some bog swamps there to pull your boots off. And Frank goes through them. He don't go around. That's as tough a man as ever lived.
When he took the young dog a couple summers ago up there and hunted, you know, and he said, now, Steve, I'm not going to put this dog in these cornfields and easy hunting. He said, I'm putting him in the swamp, you know, where he's going to have to, he's going to have to be tough or you know, but absolutely right. He's got some rough, and we've said it on this podcast before, when everybody else is ready to go to the house,
he's ready to
Frank's
hunt.
just ready to turn them loose again.
I carried some friends up there, and we hunted all night. We hunted at right breaking daylight. Well, he didn't want to come in too early because he didn't want to wake his wife up. She had to go to work. So we hunted till she got up. And Robbie get up to go to school. He was just a kid when I started. But when I first started up there, I carried a couple of buddies with me. And we'd hunted about daylight. And they was burnt out. They was ready to go in. And Frank said, well, y'all go ahead to bed. I got a young dog I'm going to go turn loose. I said, I'll go with you. He said, you don't have to. I said, no, that's what I come up here for. So we went out and turned the young dog loose. And it trailed the coon in there and treed. And about the time it treed, I was standing, here come the school bus. But you know, a lot of people say, well, then people talk about I hunt all night. Most people talk about hunt all night. They're talking about hunting 11 or 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
He hunts all night.
Exactly.
And if you want to go up there and you don't want to hunt all night, you don't need to go because he ain't going to put up with it.
Yeah.
But he's the real thing. I admire him. And
he's a guy that I just really have always enjoyed being around.
Yeah.
And I always have a good time. I've never had a bad time hunting with Frank.
Yep.
And it was the same way with Howard. Howard was a gruff, old, crusty old rascal, you know, but he was fun too, you know. And those guys were inseparable, really, there for so many years.
But that
Howard Winchell, I'm
he
speaking
could
of.
walk, big old tall rascal, as old as he done retired. And I think he was a tool and die maker, I'm not sure, but he retired. And I know he was past retirement age, and he went back to work doing industrial plumbing, and him that old. But I don't, it was probably an hour from Frank's over to his house. And he worked every day, and he'd leave us at 5 o'clock in the morning. He said, y'all catch my dog, I got to go to work. And at dark, he'd be there ready to go hunting that night. And we'd do that a couple of nights, then we'd go to his house and hunt. Tough. I hate that. Followed him when he was 30. You know, he was tough.
Well, when I left West Virginia and went to actually I was working in Tennessee, but went to Kalamazoo to UKC. I knew nothing about that. I'd been up to plot days in Michigan, knew they had a lot of coons, so that was a draw for me. But I didn't realize how many really hard coon hunters there were up there.
Yeah.
And a lot of course, now Frank's a native. He's born and raised in Michigan. But now a lot of them were boys out of East Kentucky and Tennessee and stuff that went up there to work in the factories, you know. Dave Dean, for instance, he was from West Tennessee, but as an example of that. And but, man, I found out that there's some serious coon hunters in the state of Michigan. But there's nobody could top Frank Giddings.
No, I agree with you. He's top.
Well, Jimmy, let's talk a little bit about, I know we have a lot of listeners that are so interested in history, and they're interested in the good dogs that they've heard about and all, but you had a knack of producing good dogs. I mean, I don't know, you started off with old Jeff, Tom was your first one.
Tom.
Right. And then you just, what, did you have a formula? Did you have an idea in your mind when you started breeding those dogs?
Yeah, I tell you what, people didn't breed. People didn't believe in the family breeding at that time. But when I was in my early teens, there was a guy that lived right close to me that hunted bird dogs. And he trained them bird dogs. Well, I got to messing around with him. And I was over there one day. He had a pointer. When he pointed, he laid flat on the ground on his belly and pointed his tail straight out. He had 2 setters that was stylish, but he had a litter of puppies. And I was over there talking to him. I went bird hunting with him. Back then, you could jump coveys, you wouldn't believe it, the birds. I was hunting with him, and them pups jumped a rabbit. When he come by me, I shot the rabbit, broke him down, and the dogs caught him, and he was squealing. And Charlie come over there. He was going fool over them dogs. He told me, "You don't shoot no rabbit." I said, "Well, we shoot them when we hunting." He said, "Well, if you shoot rabbits, them dogs go to pointing them." I said, "Well, that sounds good. You get rabbits and quail, and you shoot them in the bed, and you won't tear them up so bad." But he was out there one day, and he had 3 or 4 puppies, and he had a fishing rod, and he had a tennis ball with quail wings on it. And he went out there, and he cast that thing as far as he could out in the field. And I said, "What we doing?" He said, "I'm going to show you something." And we just let them puppies play. They was just running and playing. When they got out there, he twitched that rod a few times, and them puppies locked up pointed. Well, a couple of them kind of moved up a little bit when he moved that ball. And there's a couple of them, I'm talking about like 8-week-old puppies. There was a couple of them just pointed solid. And I said, "How you get them to do that, Charlie?" He said, "You don't get them to do that." He said, "They don't even know they're doing it, Jim." He said, "They ain't got no control." He said, "That's bred in them." He said, "They do it and don't even realize they're doing it." He said, "They're already doing it." And he said, "That's how it's bred into them." And he said, "Them puppies that didn't move," he said, "it don't matter what they do or don't do if they don't make a good dog." He said, "But them puppies that didn't move, if they make a good dog, you breed them with them other puppies that didn't move, made a good dog." And he said, "When them pups come," he said, "you'll have a high percentage just natural pointers." And he said, "It's bred in them so much." He said, "They don't even realize they're pointing them birds. They're already pointing." He said, "Because it's instinct in them." And I got thinking about that, and he was telling me about how he bred them. And then I read the book Snakefoot. You know, the guy's last name was Wheel, and he turned his last name around to Elhue.
Yeah.
Elhue Pointers, most famous line of pointers in the world. So I got that book he wrote, and I read that thing. and Snakefoot was his main stud dog at the time. Well, he took daughters of Snakefoot and bred them to maybe Snakefoot's cousins. Then he brought them dogs back to Snakefoot, and he just completely, he didn't breed no brother and sisters. He didn't breed nothing back to his mom or daddy. It was cousins, uncles, and aunts, and grandparents. And I read that thing, and he said that's how he got them dogs to win this bunch of pointers in history.
Yeah.
And I read that, and I got thinking, that's pretty smart. So that's the way I went to breeding them dogs. They didn't breed no brother and sisters. It was uncles, aunts, cousins, back to grandparents was good. And to the mom and daddy and brother and sisters was probably good. I know people did and got good luck, and some that didn't have. But that's the pattern I went by.
Yeah.
And the ones, any dog that I kept, they were bred that way. And when I bred them that way and got one that I liked, and he had all of it, I kept them till they died. There was a couple of them I sold, and I hated myself later for selling them. But I wanted him bred right because I wanted to use him for breeding. And most people will tell you, them dogs crossed on a bunch of dogs. And they did good.
Sound like somebody beating a drum in
here.
here.
I hope it's a drum. But them dogs crossed on a lot of dogs. But when you bred them back to dogs that was Yadkin River bred, that was the click. Frank can tell you that. They might not cross good on them dogs. But when you bred them back to Yadkin River bred dogs, that was just a combination it took.
Well, I've mentioned him on a few times on the podcast over the years, and it was Lance Hutton, a bear hunter up in West Virginia, and he told me one time, he said, he liked you family breed your dogs to establish your line, and then you outcross to get your outstanding individuals, but then you bring them back into the line. But if you can get that outcross from a strong family bred line, then that's all the better. That's all the better. And we figured that out, my dad and I, and with the help of like Everett Weems was a well-known plot breeder years ago, and he did this too. And family breeding those dogs, like you say, not brother, sister, mother, daughter. You can get too tight, you bring problems. But anyway, that's what we did. Uncle Niece, one of the best crosses we ever made was an Uncle Niece cross to one of Everett's stud dogs. He was a litter mate to this female's mother, So I'm a big proponent of that. I don't breed dogs anymore, but I look at guys like you, to hear you say that just, really certifies or verifies what I've always thought about breeding dogs.
Well, I'll tell you another thing, Steve. I don't have anything against breeding the world champions or grand knight. I don't have a problem at all. But another thing that I did, the dogs that I bred. Now, you might get a Yadkin River dog that was off of a Yadkin River dog somewhere that Leroy up here bred or something, and it might be a complete different acting dog than the one I got. It might not even have the same tendencies of mine, because the way I bred mine, I can sit here and tell you now all the way back to Tom. I hunted with the mamas, the daddies, the grandparents, and I knew how they acted. I knew how they operated. I knew how they opened. I knew how they treated. I knew their temperament. And like the dogs that I had, I know just about every dog in several generations I either owned or hunted with. And the ones I didn't own or hunt with, I contacted people and found out what they did. But I never bred a dog for me to keep a dog that wasn't a coon dog that did it like I wanted. Right. You've heard several people talk some of the females I had.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody hears about them females. I had females as good as any males I ever had.
Yeah. Well, it's like when I was listening to you and Ashley talking there earlier, and you mentioned this Shirley dog. Well, I didn't know who Shirley was.
Yeah.
I said, he's got these stud dog, Champ, Chico, Jeff, Tom, but you got to have those good females.
Oh, yeah. Shirley, I think she weighed 78, 80 pounds. And everywhere I'd carry, people said, boy, that's a good looking dog, ain't he? I said, it ain't a he. Shoot. A big head, real mouth. she was in the top few dogs I've ever been with.
Yeah.
And I bred her a Chico, and that's best litter of pups I ever raised. Not because these my dogs, but there's 3 people here today that own pups off of that litter, and they'll tell you them pups was natural. It's just like I told you one time before. I carried the one I had. He was 6 months and 3 weeks old, and I carried it. I drove all the way to Indian Head, Maryland, and got with Gordon and drove 14 hours to Frank's. He never been 10 miles from home, 6 months and 3 weeks old. Me and Robbie took him in the first night with Sackett Jr. and Jim McConnell's Charlie dog. And him and Sackett Jr. split tree, and both of them had a coon. He sat there and locked the tree, and we shot the coon out to him. I mean, 6 months old, we done traveled like 20 hours. And you tell people that, and they just can't believe it. But he was just, I had so many dogs over the years that, and not all of them was like that, but they was good enough that they'd please somebody, you know. And them's the ones that I bred, them dogs that started early. And I guess it comes down, it breeds down.
Well, I guess what you did, I know it's what you did, but you bred coon dog to coon dog.
Yes.
But they also had a commonality in their ancestry. There was a tie there between those dogs that were coon dogs to coon dogs. So, there's this argument, well, you just breed coon dog to coon dog, you'll be good. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes not. But if you come from a line of dogs, a family of dogs, those traits pass down,
Well, I'll tell you something else. You'll see a dog advertised, maybe whatever dog. He's the greatest dog that ever lived, greatest reproducer that ever lived. And he might have a brother that ain't near as good as him, and the brother might be the best reproducer. And just because a dog's won hunts or just because he's a good dog, it don't especially mean he's going to be a reproducer. But if you breed them dogs that reproduce, and they're the same type dog for 3 or 4 or 5 generations, and you ain't got no complete outcrosses, you're going to be pretty consistent in getting dogs that's kind of like what you're breeding for, It's, at best, I've known people took dogs that really should have been shot and bred them and got real good puppies. And then you know people bred good dogs and didn't get nothing.
Yeah, and that's, it's not an exact science. It never will be. We talk about that with children within the same family. Why aren't these 2 kids exactly alike? They got the same mom and daddy.
Listen to Genius, and that was outlaw.
Right. But down through the years, people used to kind of come to me and talk to me because we had these plots for all these years. And they wanted to know about, And I found out way back is if you breed within the same family, there's one thing you can tell. You'll get some uniformity in those dogs, how they look, kind of how they act, how they are around the kennel, maybe the mouth or whatever. They may not all be the same in ability and everything else, but you'll get a common thread through there, which I guess we call a strain pretty much. Yadkin River is a strain of tree and walker dogs. It's not a separate breed, but I learned that way back and would tell people. I read books like Lloyd Brackett, Mr. German Shepherd, and he was kind of like Whaley that you mentioned there with the LU pointers. He had a dog that was a big winner. He's breeding show German Shepherds. But anyway, and he bred tight. He'd take daughters of that dog that were most like him and breed back to him.
Right.
Of course, he's breeding for the confirmation ring. He's not breeding for work and all that stuff. But I don't know. I'm not a geneticist. I don't. We could get Richard Will in here and talk about the genetics and all that, I guess. But I have tried to pay attention, and I know that you have.
The only thing I say about genetics is you see some of these people advertising this dog 9/10 Leroy or 22nd this and that. The only thing I got to say genetics is a science, and it's not completely accurate because you take this, if these genetic experts, if genetics was exactly what they say, if you bred these two, I've known people bred two dogs and get a real litter of pups and breed them again, wasn't nothing.
Exactly.
If genetics, the way we see it, was accurate, every time you bred them dogs be exactly like by what they say.
Yeah.
So you could breed them 5 times and every litter would be the same.
Basically be cloning them.
So it's not working like we got it figured out.
Yeah, you're exactly right there. And I used to, when they first started, Mendel, I think, was the one that, a lot of maybe in plants and all this other stuff. And there's an old plot breeder in West Virginia, Isaiah Kidd, and he would kind of refer back to that stuff. And we've all kind of tried to reach back and grab this and that out of it. But when it all boils down to it, it's mostly shoe leather and paying attention.
Yeah.
I think that's what breeding comes down to. You're out there hunting those dogs night after night, and you're watching them and you're paying attention to them, and you're seeing which ones are doing what you want.
You're breeding for that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more of a seat of the pants type flying more than anything. But that knowledge adds up over the years, and yeah.
Well, one of the big, I'll say his name. He's passed now, and I thought was AJ Wright.
Yeah.
He had old Wright Sue, and us people that think we're in the know, we give Wright Sue way, and she was off of House's Bally, Joe House's dogs, and she was off of Touch Tilly. But we give a lot of credit to Sue because we seen good dogs, and I hunted with Tilly and I hunted with all of her litter mates, and I liked them. Tilly was trashy, but she treated him coon. But he bought that dog off of Tut Lower. He bred Tilly to House's Bally, and AJ had a great dog. Well, Sue just went stopping behind him dogs treating coons, so he got rid of them, went hunting Sue. She's big female, big mouth, real tree dog, and she reproduced. But AJ did not believe in line breeding. He outcrossed every single time he bred to every world champion that come along. And he said when he bred the Sailor Junior twice, he got Tom's daddy out of one litter and Jeff's out of the other. And Tom was Jeff's granddaddy also. But he said, I know that works because I hunt with y'all and I see that and I like it. He said, but I ain't done it. I'm not going to do it. Before he died, everybody in that country had more of his blood than he did.
Yeah.
If you outcross 2 or 3 times, you don't even need to talk about them dogs. They're gone.
Right. They're gone.
You got a new strain of dogs there.
Yeah.
But he just wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, and you see this a lot in breeding. We'll use the plot breed again. Guys say, I got a Weems bred plot. I got a Cascade bred plot or whatever. Those dogs have been dead for years and years and years.
He's in the 8th generation.
He's way back there in a spot or two, and to say you've got a Weems bred dog, to me, that meant Everett Weems was driving the bus. Yeah. He was deciding which cross, was going with what and all. And he was, I mean, he was either the best or the luckiest in the plot breed, But, that kind of tickles me.
I've had people tell me, said, I got a dog out of Jeff. I said, Jeff what? He said, your Yadkin River Jeff. I said, he's been dead since 1984. How'd you get, and I never got no semen. How'd you get a pup off of him? And come to find out it's a great-great-grandpup or something. But just because that name's in there, he said, I got one off of him,
I was being the smart aleck at the Southeastern Tree and Walker Days one day. I was walking out there across the lot to get my vehicle, and a guy had about 3 plots tied up right there by the road where you used to go in the gate.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, those nice-looking dogs, what they out of? And he said, Cascade timber. And I said, wow, man, I had some timber-bred dogs. I said, well, how old are you dogs? Are they about 30 now? I was just being a smart aleck. Because I said, old Timber's been dead 30 years.
Yeah.
But, it's funny how people... some people look at that, and they'll ask, do you have any, what was it the other day? Somebody asked me if anybody had any dogs, and they mentioned, like you said, dogs have been dead 30 or 40 years. I said, that's so washed out now.
Well, another thing I wanted to say, and I'm not trying to talk about my dog, but I just wanted to say this.
Well, we want to talk about your dog.
My dogs, except for Jeff, Chico, and Champ and all, have never been to a hunt, never been to a show, have never been on the grounds where he was having one. And the majority of people say, well, I don't see all these world champions, these Grand Night champions. The majority of dogs that was bred to them was pleasure hunters. I got people around here that's hunting fifth and sixth generations of them, and they ain't never been to a hunt. And you know, them dogs was bred a lot, and they was bred by word of mouth. If somebody'd come and hunt with one, I'd carry the puppy. And when the puppy got big enough, they'd come and breed to him, and I'd carry another puppy. And they just couldn't get over them little puppies treeing coons. And I'm not talking about 8 and 10 months. I'm talking about puppies.
Yeah.
And but a lot of people bred to them, but they were pleasure hunters, and they was doing just what I was doing. They was getting a dog for them.
Yeah.
And they would sell the pups, and just like Buster Britt down here at Bennett, North Carolina, we've been with dogs and the Gilroys. We've never exchanged $1 between each other. If they got a litter of pups and I want one, I get one. If I got one, they want one. If they want to breed a dog, they just come breed it. We hunt the same type of dogs, and when we breed one, we breed each other's dogs, and they're Yadkin River dogs, but they got some different Yadkin River dogs in them. They all go back to the same stuff.
Sure.
But we're getting a dog to hunt, and we all like the same type of dog.
Yeah.
You know, his might be better than mine, but we like the same type of dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
But pleasure hunters bred to them dogs, and a lot of them dogs, you say, well, I don't see nothing off of him. But if you look in that pedigree, especially when I was actively breeding, if you look in that pedigree, one of them dogs was pretty close up in a bunch of dogs. And like I said, my Tom dog, his daddy was off of Sailor Jr.
Yeah.
And Wright Sue. Well, Tom's mama was off of Finley River Chief. So Sue went back to House's Bally and touched Tilly, and Sailor Jr. Well, here's Joe House's dog. Here's John Monroe's Finley River Chief, and they was Banjo 2 back in there on Tom's mama's side. I mean Jeff's mama's side. So them old breeders, I can't take credit for all that. Them old breeders had dogs in there that made the dogs that I got.
Right.
I just got what I got and went forward with them the way I wanted to. But they was good dogs to start with. You know, I didn't make nothing. I just guided them the way I wanted to go.
Well, there was a reason, you know, back in the day when communication wasn't very good, all we had was the magazines.
Yeah.
A long distance phone call was something like, my mama, like, you're not calling that. That's long distance.
Call me on Sunday at 2 o'clock.
Yeah. So, you know, communication was really limited. We waited to see who won the World Hunt when American Cooner came out in November with the cover, you know.
Everybody was standing at the mailbox mad because it didn't come to first.
That's right. But,
it seemed like it to me, even today. And I've took them magazines all these years, Full Cry and everything. And Full Cries went to a lot of squirrel hunting. There's still a lot of coon hunting messages. It's tree dog messages.
Yeah.
But I read them books, and I don't know why, but it's closer to me. It's more personal reading that stuff, just like John Wick's columns or Mark Zepp. You know, I love that stuff. That's down home stuff he writes.
Yeah.
And that stuff just means more to me than reading something on the internet. That's just so impersonal.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we come from a different generation, you know, and I mentioned this on one of my podcasts the other day. I don't want to sound like I'm talking down to these younger hunters and that I'm discrediting them in any way. I do think I have some ideas that they could learn from, you know, but and a lot of younger people tend to want to, if they hear something they haven't heard before, they want to confront it instead of consider it.
Yeah.
I'd say they want to confront instead of consider. You know, well, maybe this old guy over there in those bib overalls, he might know something that I need to know, you know. But at the same time, I don't want to say, well, these guys with these mile deep ambush dogs and all, they're not coon hunters. They don't know what to do. Well, I can't be that guy. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be them, that's for sure, because I don't want to walk a mile to one unless I have to, you know.
Not if you can tree them in a quarter mile.
That's right. That's right. But so there's that generational thing, and I'm sure it was there probably. You know, my dad came off the farm. They had tree dogs, but they were varmint dogs. You know, they caught anything they wanted them to catch.
Steve,
You know,
back in the days we lived in the country, and everybody had a yard dog. Well, them dogs go on tree squirrels and possums. We didn't have no coons. They'd go there and run rabbits and stuff. And I guarantee you can go to 100 places today that's got a yard dog, and they wouldn't even bark at a cat if he walked over and eat their food.
right.
They have absolutely no treeing instinct in them. And every disease or something that comes through, they catch.
Yeah.
Them old dogs never had no flea powder.
They never had a shot
clipped.
for anything.
She'd go under the house and have puppies, and she'd
That's
drag
true.
them out from under there when they're 6 weeks old. And they'd come out there and start pulling on your shoestrings as happy as they could be. And now they laying in there scared to death. They bred. They're
Yeah.
doing something ain't right.
Right.
But talking about the young people,
Well, let me jump in there.
Okay.
I think it's because those dogs are not working.
exactly.
There's no work for them to do.
Just lay around.
They lay around, and they don't learn anything.
Yeah.
And that those genetics run out.
Just like a person.
Yeah.
If you don't have a job, you don't know how to do it, lay around the house and watch TV, you'll go down. You can
Yeah.
believe that.
I try to tell these younger people, learn a trade, learn a skill. Be
Yeah.
a carpenter, be a plumber, be an electrician.
Something
work
that
in a
people's
place.
got to have.
That's
Yeah.
a need. That's sitting in the basement on and look the face in front of that screen. I ain't gonna get it.
Well, and I'm not just talking about the youth. I'm talking about the old people too. You can go right now. We was at the restaurant yesterday, and we was talking about. You go there and there'd be 5 people sitting at a table eating dinner, and every one of them looking at a screen. I'm saying, can you not put it down long enough to have a conversation? Them kids that get out of school, ride the bus home, texting each other on the way home, sitting beside each
Sitting
other.
right next.
But talking about the youth, I just want to
Yeah.
say something now. The Gilroy clan is my friend.
Yeah.
But Tom Gilroy, he's kind of taken up where David left off, and David took up where Gordon. David and Gordon had them dogs together. They wasn't all Gordons. They was David's too.
Yeah.
And like I say, Tom's been coming out since he was 9 years old. But he's really struck an interest in them Yadkin River dogs, and he's got a lot to learn, and I have too. But he's doing some breeding, and he's getting some good dogs. And I got some pups there at the house off of his dogs. That what I want to see pups do, you know.
Yeah. What
And-
was the dog that Gordon studied some advertising? Crowder. The Crowder dog, right.
And,
Yadkin River Crowder.
Yeah. And he was but this young guy, he's putting the time in. He's hunting them dogs,
Yeah.
he's working them, you know.
Yeah.
So it's all the youth ain't crazy, and he don't want one leaving the world either. He wants one that hunts where you at. If you ain't
Right.
found out, come on back.
Yeah. Well, that's it. They certainly aren't, and there's a lot of good hunters, and that's one thing here at Grand American. You see a lot of young hunters come through, and I meet these young families, and they're got their little kids with them, and they're involved in the sport. And I'll just say right now, this Grand American this year is more like the old days.
Yeah.
As far as the crowds are concerned. Of course, the weather's beautiful, and that affects everything. But this thing has always, people say, what's the biggest hunt in the country? Well, Grand American.
Yeah.
As far as people, Autumn Oaks is a great hunt. I love to go there and everything. The crowd does not compare
Makes a
to the
difference.
Grand American because there's just a lot more humans here. But anyway, the point to see these younger people go through but of course, when you're as old as I am, Jim, everybody's young,
Well, I think everybody's got an opinion, but what I learned a long time ago, you respect your elders.
Yeah.
If you're older than me, I call you sir, and I'm nice to
We
people.
were raised that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
But because you're old, don't mean you're smart. I've hunted with young guys, and not especially my friends. I'm talking about young guys that was as smart as anybody I know about hunting. I mean, it's just like a mechanic go out there and he work on the car. I can sit there and watch him. He can't fix a car. He's just got that natural knack for it, and they pick up that stuff quick. And I've hunted with old guys that was just as dumb as they was when they was 20.
Yeah.
And they still believe the same stuff. You're not going to change their mind. And I tell them young guys, listen to him. Just listen to him and think it through. Pick out what you want to believe.
Right.
But you don't have to be old to be smart about hunting.
That's right. That's right.
And they some smart young guys out there now. And I'm not talking about smart Alex. I'm talking about that really know what's going on.
I think about a kid up in, I call him a kid. He's a young man, got a family, His name is Ben Jones, Greenville, Tennessee. He's a bear hunter. And Ben is probably as knowledgeable as any bear hunter is that's walking the mountains. I don't care what age they are, and he's not an old man at all. You know, his granddaddy was a bear hunter, and his great granddaddy was a bear hunter, and the kid was consumed by it and learned it. You know, tough as wet leather.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, you make a good point there, Jimmy, and I've been trying to walk back a little bit. Some things I say about occasionally talk about these younger hunters that don't really, and there are some that don't really understand or have a desire to learn. But there is some that out there that
there's some, and older guys too, that get into it and play with it a little bit. If it don't go this right, they go play golf or something. And then there's them.
You can't dabble in it. This is important.
There's them that's like me and you, like I said about the bird dog puppy. You can't help yourself.
Yeah.
You can try to quit, but it's always in that mind. Kyle Chase told me he rabbit hunted. He said he possum hunted, and he quit possum hunting. They didn't have no coons up there in Kingsport, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And he said he went to rabbit hunting. And he said he's out there on the side of the mountain rabbit hunting one day, and he said he heard a dog come treed back in there. And he said that lit that fire. He said, I just couldn't stand it. I had to go to that dog. He said it had been so long, and he said it's so funny though. I hadn't even thought about it. And he said when I heard that dog come treed back in there, he said that lit that fire. He said I had to get me a dog.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't nothing he could do about it.
Well, somebody posted online or on something the other day I read, and it was talking about no matter what, this or that or something else, it never gets old walking to that tree.
That's it. That excitement.
That expectation.
Yeah.
Every tree's different. And did you ever walk into a tree that you just wasn't interested in seeing what was up there?
Well, I tell you what, I've hunted with a couple of dogs that I was mad.
Oh, yeah.
Them dogs that don't do right. And when you know you're wrong, when you hear that dog tree, you need to feel that blood boiling, your ears ringing, and you're ready to go. You're going to go see a coon. When he's so bad about missing, and when you hear him locate, you start cussing. That's when you got the wrong dog.
That's absolutely
I've
right.
seen people. I went on a couple casts, honest to goodness, and it ain't been many years ago. They didn't even go looking for a coon. They walked in there looking for a hole or where he could have crossed. And you find the coon, they was more surprised than the coon. I said, oh, God, it's a coon, you know. So when you get to that point, you need to change something.
Well, I had a good hunting buddy up in Ohio, and he was strictly a pleasure hunter, and he was a hide hunter. That's the only reason he hunted. But he left the dog up all summer long when season come in, and maybe a week before season he'd start exercising a little bit. Yeah. But every tree you went, he told you about. If he went hunting and you didn't go, he'd say, "Boy, Steve, old Buster treed last night, and I walked up there and I threw my light up, and there was a big old coon."
Like you never seen one.
He ever seen. And he got, he said, "There's a big old coon up there."
I just about feel like that.
Yeah. Well, you can't describe it, No. And the old saying about salvation, the old country preacher said it's better felt than telt.
Yeah.
So.
You were talking about bear hunters a while ago.
Yeah.
I guess this is about young people and all. You met Aaron Lowry a while ago.
Yes.
That's one of the best guys you'll ever meet.
I see.
He's real respectful, and I've known him probably 20 years, and I know a lot of people know him. A lot of people raised. Well, Ashley and Buddy and them was raised up over there in the same general area, and I've never heard anything but people brag on Aaron. And he's a bear hunter, and he's got that fever and got the dogs to go with it. But he's a coon hunter too. But if you go in that country and mention him, you'll hear so many compliments. It makes you proud to even know that you know him. He's top of the line. I think the world of him.
Yeah.
He got a couple pups off of me, probably 15 years ago, and one of them pups, the male pup, I think he made one of Aaron's main dogs. He loved that dog. And he's kind of breeding his own line of walkers now. I don't know exactly what combinations he's making, But he puts a lot of videos on Facebook if you look on
Yeah.
it. And
I haven't, but I will now. Yeah.
well, you pull it up, he'll go out there and tree 2 or 3 bears a day some days.
Yeah.
But now,
Well, the thing about bear hunting, has really become popular with the young guys.
Yeah.
And that's because the bear population has just exploded all
it
over the
has.
country.
Yeah.
And I asked Ashley Oxendine a while ago about that, and he said they're starting to come into his area,
Yeah.
And and that's exciting to a young hunter.
Yeah. If you don't get
it's a
excited over
rush.
that, them boys at Bear Hunt told me years ago, now there wasn't as many bears, they spent a lot of time riding around trying to hit a track.
Yeah.
Well, Harley McConnell once told me,
Yeah.
he said, it's the most exciting thing you've ever done when they get on a bear. And he said, when you're looking for a track, it's the boringest thing you've ever done. He said, but it goes from nothing to wide open in an instant.
In an instant.
Yeah, that's what he
right.
said.
As soon as you find that track and that box explodes and everything, I mean, you can be tired, you can be sleepy, you can be hungry, whatever. There's a bear track. I wrote an article one time years ago in Coonhound Bloodline called "Bear Hunters and Bear Dogs Are Crazy."
Yeah.
And they are. When they find a bear track,
Go
they
fool.
go. Don't be standing on the road when they're trying to get in there to cut their dogs loose.
I know you still you need to get up with there and go up there and go bear hunting with him. He hunts right there around Whiteville and in that area below
I see.
Wilmington.
Yeah.
And but he's as good as they come. He's just like Ashley. He's just much respect. Everybody respects him, and he is a really good man.
Well, I need to do that for sure because I'm not getting any younger, Jim. Well, listen, I've asked you this before, but we pick up listeners all the time, and I'm sure there's some of them. What was your favorite over the years?
My favorite
dog? Yeah.
Well, most people would say Jeff. Jeff didn't have but 300 and something puppies. I didn't breed him much, but I hunted him much. And he had that great old big mouth. He's a one bark tree dog. He was accurate. He had it all. AJ Wright says what most people don't realize. He's such a tree dog and got such a mouth. They don't realize what kind of track dog he is. He would take a track dog was fumbling, and AJ said he'd take it out of there like following a white line down the highway. He was that kind of track dog. And I loved him. And at the time I had Tom was a medium hunting dog. And I hunted around Charlotte and all them highways and all. He'd go in there and hunt it out and come back. You take him across the road and send him another way. He was perfect for that. And first time I took Jeff down east, he come out of the mountains. He never seen no swamp. Them dogs quit, and he's staying there and treating them coons. I mean, that ice water didn't bother him. But of all the dogs I've had, Champ, nothing touched him.
Champ was the one. Yeah. And he was out of Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now, I didn't like Champ as much as I liked a couple of them. But as far as the top dog, he was the top dog. And I liked the Chico dog, but the Shirley dog, she was right up there among the top of them. And I've had several that was up in that category, but Champ was the top by far.
How did those dogs figure into the lineage of Sackett Jr.?
Well, Sackett Jr.'s sire was Old Sackett, and he was off of Crowder, and Crowder was off of Champ. Crowder was off of Jeff. And Sackett's mama was off of Champ, and Champ was off of Jeff. And but back to them dogs, Champ was by far the best dog I ever hunted with, in my opinion. Other people I never heard nobody talk bad about him, but he was that type of dog.
Yeah.
But I love Shirley, and I had a dog called Belle that was off of Chico, and a Champ female, and she had to be at least one of my favorite dogs of all time. And I lived next to a farm, had my dog pens back under the trees, and they planted cotton back there. Well, all my water buckets was on the side toward the house. Well, her pen, I put it at the back of the pen, and that guy had to help coming there spraying that cotton, and it was windy, and it come up there, and It just killed her kidneys.
Poisoned the water.
Kidneys went out. She wasn't but 7 years old.
Oh my! Yeah.
I wouldn't have took nothing for her.
Yeah.
But she had that gigantic mouth. She just had it all.
Well, when Oxley's a young man, but he certainly walked behind some really good dogs in his life. And when he talked about Shirley, his eyes light up, and he'd love to have one out of her today. But well, I know we all have our favorites, but I enjoyed the way I knew about a lot of those dogs. Where the word of mouth would drift up to West Virginia. Of course, we had old Brax Blaze.
Yeah, you hunted with
there,
old Blaze.
Yeah. But through your columns in Full Cry, and I used to love to listen to you talk your Just Hunting articles and all, and you relive these hunts and stuff. So I think the guys out there listening, especially like my buddy Keston up in Virginia, he doesn't really have a lot of desire to be a competition hunter, but he sure does love the coon hunt. Right. And he's out there every night. I mean, every possible night he's out there. So you don't really, everybody knows the Yadkin River strain. Everybody knows who Jim Meeks is. You don't have to be a big-time competition hunter to make your mark in coonhounds. Yeah.
Steve, I'd like to say one thing. I wrote an article in Full Cry or American Coon or both since back in probably the early 70s. And I'd like to say this. If you go back through all them columns, I don't think you'll ever find me say a word about my dogs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I always talk about, I'd say
who came
we
to hunt with,
and I'd say we treed this, or I'd say his dog did this, but I never said my dog did this or my dog did it, because I wasn't doing it to promote my dogs. I bought an ad, and a lot of people put these little things. I might have some puppies for sale, in their column and all. And Terry knows what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
But I never said my dog did this or my dog did it, or Champ did this or Champ did that. I'd say we caught 2 coons, or the dogs treed 3 coons, or his John dog looked outstanding. But I never, if you go back through all of them, I don't think you'll ever see one place where I did that.
Well, I was always real conscious about that too. Now, when I started this podcasting, well, first it was with Chris Powell, and then I got with the boys from Arkansas and North Carolina. We did this country store thing and all. But we found that listeners wanted us to talk about our dogs.
Yeah.
But they wanted us to talk about them from the standpoint of their failures and successes and their training and all that, not just to say, I got old so-and-so, and he's a 14-time Grand Nighttime champion and all this. And, a good friend of mine, and you've got lots of friends like this, Johnny Brinkley from Florida. Johnny's been around for many years. And David McKee and I used to go, and Lee Currens and various ones, every year, the week of the Winter Classic in Georgia, we'd go down to Johnny's and pleasure hunt. And Johnny would always say, he said, I have such a good time when you guys come down here. We go hunting, we tree coons, or we don't. Nobody's bragging about their dog. Nobody's striking and treeing their dog off. We're just out there having a good time, Don't miss that, fellas, out there in podcast land. You're listening to this. Don't miss the fun and enjoyment and the fellowship. Exactly. Perfect word.
The best I've ever heard it said, I've mentioned Gene Cruz about it, everything I've ever said, and he was one of my heroes of coon hunting. Him and A.J. Wright and several more, but Gene Cruz, he was just an old country coon hunter, and he had them ringneck fox dogs.
Yeah.
And he'd hunt them dogs, and everybody tried to buy them, and Alan Shue told him he wouldn't sell him that fox dog, and he said, let me hunt him in the hunts. And Gene took him, and he hunted him in 3 hunts and made him a night champion.
You mean Alan took him?
No, Gene said, I'll hunt him.
Oh, I got
He hunted him in 3 hunts and made him a night champion. And then he quit. And Alan said, let's make him a grand. He said, no, I just wanted to show y'all that a fox dog make a night champion. Y'all ain't got nothing. And he never hunted him in another hunt. But I hunted them dogs, and I bought one of them. It was a grade female. And I had a pedigree back to the 30s on her that he kept. Half of them was named Ring or Drum, but he put the name of the dog, the color of the dog, and who owned the dog. And if you look back, it was family bred all the way down. When I bought her from Gene. And he came and bred her to Champ. And he shipped 2 or 3 of them dogs to Oregon. And I had calls for years, and boys out there want some more of them dogs. And they was great dogs. Then he bred her to Chico, and he shipped some of them out there.
Yeah.
And they was good dogs. Well, I had her single registered, and I bred her to Chico, and I kept one of the puppies, and I got all kind of pictures of them. Junior Duncan was one of the top people in the blue tick breeders.
Yeah.
I had him when I single registered him. I had Junior Duncan. He was the one that come and checked him out. We cut him in a big swamp. He went there and trailed the coon up. He's about 13 months old and treed the coon. We went and seen it. And I said, what do you think, Junior? He said, my God, everything ought to treat a coon like that. Just, she was that kind of dog, you know. And Gene said, well, I tell you, boys, them boys hunt, you know, strike. They practice for the hunt. He never said a word. He didn't say a word. And that dog could fly. He caught several foxes. And he said, I'd rather go hunting. Us go hunting. And every one of us is dog tree a coon. Is mine tree all of them. He said, everybody wants a dog to be good and do the best. He said, but if every one of us is dog tree a coon, we still tree 3 coons, and everybody's happy when we go home. And he said, that mean more to me than my dog tree and all of them.
Yeah, what an attitude.
That's
Man,
an
if we
attitude.
could bottle that and sell
That's
it.
the attitude, yeah. But them boys and them boys down around Denton, North Carolina, they raised that stock of dogs.
Wasn't that where Junior was from?
No, I think Junior was raised up down around White.
Okay. Junior, I always remember him at Blue Tick Days, wore that little fedora hat, like, you know, and always, it was all, we used to call them the North Carolina Mafia, all them Blue Tick guys down through there.
You remember Roy Latham? He used to sell them.
For sure.
Well, down there around his house, in fact, I think it was his cousin. They was several of them grade ringneck dogs come up there and bred the Champ. And I mean, them made good dogs.
So these were foxhound origin dogs, but they were tree dogs.
They were natural tree dogs. They run foxes with them and then coon hunt. And I went and I said, how do you get them 4-year-old dogs broke off of foxes? He said, well, if you run them with them 2-year-old dogs all day and then take him coon hunting that night, he said, it ain't long. He's looking for a reason to stop. But most of them dogs that was 4 or 5 years old, stone broke. I mean, and most of them was black or red ringneck, had a white ringneck, white feet. It looked like Ozark Preacher.
Yeah.
They had big old mouths, natural tree dogs. And I bred that bitch a couple times, and I sold her to a good friend of mine. He bred her. And when he come and bred her to Champ, I've hunted with him for years. He hunted with Pistol Pete. He hunted with Blaze. He hunted with Jeff, Champ. He hunted with all of them. I hunted with him all the time. He said, her name was Jimmy. He said, I want to breed Jimmy to Champ. What do you think of that? I said, that'd be fine. And he said, I tell you, he said, all them boys is raising Cain at me, want me to breed that dog. He said, now I've had these dogs for 30 years. He said, but we're losing our tree pile. He said, they're natural tree dogs. He said, they're still real strike dogs, real track dogs. He said, but we're getting weaker at the tree. And he said, I've hunted with all them dogs. And he said, I know exactly where I need to go to get that tree. And he come and bred the Champ. Boy, he got that stuff right back. Now, they were still good tree dogs, but he said there wasn't as many of them that was really impressive. But now he was the coon hunter's coon hunter.
I'll be. Well, you know, there's so many stories like that we don't hear that are out there in regional areas. Went out to South Texas and hunted with Shorty Gorham, the PBR bullfighter.
Yeah.
And he's got a line of foxhound bred dogs, but they're Texas West bred cat dogs as well. He hunts bobcat, nothing but well, he hunts mountain lion with them too. He went to Florida and participated in studies on the Florida panther and treated some cats for him and all that. And he's got all of his dogs will tree, but most of them are sight treeing. You know, I watch them. I mean, they're gamey as they can be, and they're. But I think what you were saying about those ringneck fox dogs and all, that's kind of the way the Walker coonhound came to be. Yeah. Because those old foxhounds stopped.
Went to tree.
You know, they'd slow down some and they'd go to treeing. And they said, well, old Joe over there, he's a tree dog. Let's breed to him. And just through coon dog to coon dog, I guess. But that's really how the Walker breed was established.
Well, them ringneck dogs, they was just natural tree dogs, but where they excelled over most dogs is they could fly. I mean, when they could take a bad track and move it too, but when he got up running, they run for the catch.
Oh, yeah.
What I call a good track dog, I want him to be able to trail and get him up, but I don't want a dog following the coon wanting to tree him. I want him up there trying to catch him and kill him. He might not catch him, but I want him to run for the catch, not the tree.
Well, if you want to see what a hound can do and how quick they can move and how quick they can tree a bobcat in thick country, go out there and hunt with Shorty.
Yeah.
But I mean, once those dogs, they scatter out everywhere hunting. He's riding along his ranch road, and one of them opens, man, it's just like a magnet. Every one of them's right there, and man, it's on. And it's just amazing how fast they'll put that thing in the tree.
When I first started hunting with AJ back in probably 60 or 61, somewhere along there, there was an old guy that lived over there near him. That cat hunted. And we went down there one day, and he probably had 10 or 12 cats hanging on the barbed wire fence out there. And he had 4 or 5 old dogs there, and they just looked like old dogs. And I said, them things must can fly. He said, no, they're just medium speed. I said, well, how you catch them cats? He said, I'm going to tell you. He said, that fast dog, he said, that cat will come out to a paved road, and he'll stop on his toes and go down the road or turn back and jump off. And he said, them fast dogs run slap across that road over there, and they got to find him again. He said, my dog's just medium speed. And he said, when they get to the road, they don't never touch the pavement. And he said, it takes them a while. He said, but they just dog him till he goes up the tree. And I said, well, they jump out of them trees. He said, they will at night. He said, he won't jump out in the daytime.
Right.
He said, you can't take a stick and knock him out in the daytime.
Yeah.
And I said, how you kill them cats? He said, you won't believe this. He said, if a dog tries to fight the cat, that cat will tear him up. He said, but if he'll just go in there and grab him, he said, that cat will give up. He said, he just gives up. A couple of dogs grab him. He said, he'll just give up and they'll kill him. He said, but if that dog tries to stand back and fight at him, he's had a bad day. But he must know what he's talking about. He had the cats to prove it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, Jimmy, we've been at it here over an hour, I believe. Can you believe that?
About 20 minutes.
Huh? I said we were going to do 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Man, we just got to get together more often and talk about these old dogs, man, and the experiences. And this podcast, I think, kind of sometimes I think that it appeals more to the older hunters. But then I get a lot of these young guys come by and say, I like the podcast, I'm listening to it. So that makes it worthwhile to me. There's no reason for me to do this other than I just enjoy talking to interesting people, I meet so many people, down through the years. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of them.
Yeah.
And Kyle Chase, hadn't been that long since Kyle passed.
Yes.
Which a guy I always loved. He always called me Honey.
Oh, yeah, Honey. Everybody named
was Honey
Yeah.
to Kyle. What a great guy, and really played a part. There's a whole book of history in the Southeast on the Walker dog, where, you think of Lester Nance and the Indiana, and I've spent quite a bit of time with Lester's grandsons, and talking about their grandfather and the origins of the Walker dog there. But here in the Southeast, there's been a long-standing tradition.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, then you mentioned A.J. Wright and all these people. And, in the Southeastern Walker days was such a powerful organization for so many years.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're probably doing as well in Union, South Carolina, as they did in Salisbury, but I hope they are. And
I wish them the best.
Oh, I do too. And they got a good guy that's their president there, and all. But anyway, Jimmy, we probably ought to wind this up. I haven't sold a book or a magazine since we've been standing here, but or sitting here, but I've enjoyed it.
Well, I've enjoyed it. We've been friends a long time, and I was friends with your daddy before I ever met you, and he was a fine man. You right in his shoes, you know. And so it's a pleasure talking to somebody. We think a lot alike on a lot of things. You know, I ain't saying we're right down the line.
I think we tend to gravitate toward the people.
Yeah.
And I think John Wick paid me a compliment when he wrote the foreword to my book.
Yeah.
And he talked about my friends, and that you can kind of judge a person by the friends he chooses, you know. And I've always been blessed with good friends, you know, and I count you one of those. Well, absolutely, one of the best.
People have to be good friends to have good friends.
Well, I guess.
If you think about it, you know.
Well, my dad was a people person.
He was.
He loved to go to the hunts and just talk.
Yeah.
He cared nothing about the competition.
Yeah.
He hunted a few night hunts. In fact, one of the things I enjoyed so much was one of the he was getting up in years, and he hunted a dog at Plot Days on Thursday night. It was a seniors cast, and he won the cast with a better score than I had. So I said, well, Dad, we're going to take Wrangler then, and I'll hunt him the next 2 nights and see if we can get the overall win with him. And we ended up getting the opposite sex. Yeah. So that was like a team thing. Dad got him one night, oh, yeah. Oh, he was right there for all the pictures, you know, and he enjoyed that. But no, he just loved people.
He was another one of them people that you can actually say, I seen him around for years, you know, like a Southeastern hunter or wherever. Yeah. And he was one of them people that you never heard anybody say a cross word about him. I mean, you got to be a pretty good person for that, because you can be the best person in the world. Somebody over jealous is going to say, he's all right, but he stole a watermelon when he's 3, you know, something like that. Just people come to see his stud dog. He treated 22 coons, run a deer 400 yards. With the store Monday, how that dog do? A deer dog.
He's a deer.
But I never heard anybody say a cross word about him. So that says a lot.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I know that there's a lot of people down through the years that probably looked at me and said, you'll never be the houndsman your dad was. And they're right.
Yeah.
I won't. Because he lived it, breathed it, loved it since he was a little kid, you know, and but, you know, I have him to thank for my love for the sport, because I would have never got involved in it at all if it hadn't been for him.
Yeah.
But then I kind of got, you know, looking at the magazines and liking the hunts and the shows and going where the crowd said, well, before I could drive, he'd take me. Yeah. He'd drive me to Ohio. He'd drive me down in Virginia place, you know, but he knew I enjoyed it. Well, he'd sit around and talk, and that was his element. He just loved to get around people.
But a lot of people, and it seems like it's getting more and more like what I'm saying. A lot of people just wasn't lucky enough to have a parent that would do that, because they had something of their own they wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I try to tell the younger guys, just like Keston, my friend, and of course, you know, he's invested in his children, and they're getting up to the age where he's going to get busy with them. His oldest one's 7. And I said, you know, there's nothing more important than your family and your kids. If you can bring them into the sport where they like it, you know, then that makes it all the better.
Right.
You know? Talking to this one little kid here today, and his daddy, his name is David, and was signed a book for him.
Yeah.
And he's telling me about the deer he shot. He killed. He's 10 years old, and he's killed about 6 deer now, but he's killed 2 of them in front of dogs, you know. I said, how you hunt? Get them things, you know. He said, well, I missed a lot.
When Tom was 8 or 9 years old, I think he done killed a deer or 2. But a good friend of ours lives up next to Kent Spencer, George Cox. George bought him one of them lights you follow blood with.
Oh,
And when he come down, we all used to get together at Southeastern pleasure hunting, had a cabin at Hampton West. We stayed over. Well, Tom said, what is that? And Hamp said, that's a blood light. He said, what is that? He said, that when you shoot the deer, you can follow him, you find him. He said, I can find him. He said, how you find him? He said, he'd be laying there where he was at when I shot him. He didn't have to go look for no deer. He killed him when he shot him.
I think somebody's got their boom box with them.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this recording turns out well, Jimmy, because there's a
so.
lot of background people, noise, and a lot of humanity has passed by the booth since we've been talking. But man, it's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you talking to me, Pete.
Oh,
Steve.
man, what are you talking about? Man, can't get any better than this, but I want you to have good health in the new year. I want you to be able to get out with the dogs as much as you can. And
I'm trying to.
Yeah, I know. It gets to be a job when we get to our age.
Well, I got a pup that I'm fooling with, so he's getting me kind of interested, again. That'll make you get up.
Do that,
that'll make you get up and go when you don't want to.
Well, I've said on this podcast, I got a couple partners. One's in North Carolina, one's in Virginia, and my wife, I think, gets a little irritated with me sometimes. And we'll be watching something on TV together, and that phone will ring. Mm-hmm. And she said, would you take that to the other room? Because I'm yakking about coon dogs, and she's trying to hear the TV. Yeah, but anyway, they send me videos and clips and let me know how the hunt went.
That's good.
If they got a problem, well, the dog did this, what do you think, yada, yada. I said, well, I don't know whether it's any good or not, but I'll tell you. And so that's kept me in, keeps me involved with it, so when I can't get out there.
You look forward to hearing from them.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I do. And God bless them for thinking about an old man, Well, Jimmy Meeks, it's been great to have you on the Gone to the Dogs podcast. You're a legend in this sport without any doubt. Anybody that thinks about a Yadkin River tree and walker dog, or look at these famous stud dogs like Tar Rattler, look at the Sackett Jr., and then the Champ and Jeff and Tom and Chico and all these dogs. I mean, you're just permanently linked to that. And as our sport, we have a lot to thank you for. And I thank you for the time you spent with me today, buddy.
I appreciate it.
It's been a joy.
Thank you very much.